What's good, everybody? So it is August 22nd, 2026. The crypto market has had one of its most fantastic rallies in a long time. All right, and this isn't just like a tailwind rally. So I usually I've fallen off, but I'd like to kind of give my thoughts on the crypto market, and especially after this week, there is a lot to dive into. So bear with me while I kind of run through some notes that I have with y'all. But just full disclosure, this is not financial advice. I'm not licensed or anything like that. I just have been studying crypto, been in the space for about 5 years now. I have attended going on to be multiple conferences. So far, I've attended Ethereum Conference 2026. That was fantastic. Learned so much. But without further ado, I just want to get that out of the way. This is just how I'm approaching crypto. And I'm going to kind of break it down with how I'm going to kind of approach given this news and go from there. If you want to emulate that, replicate that, that's completely up to you. That is your choice. Obviously, I can't guarantee that Bitcoin or Ethereum is going to skyrocket or go up. It'll go up when it goes up. Now, when that is, I don't know. So do with that information what you will. So getting into it right now. This is the biggest rally Bitcoin's had in about 2 years, and I'm gonna break down kind of why that is, and more so the points that most people kind of miss on this. So, quickly summing it up, this week Bitcoin's up 20%, and Ethereum actually was like rocket fuel and went even further than that, up to 27%. You saw Ethereum move from around kind of low sub 1800 level all the way up to now, 2400 resistance level. I think it's going to continue to rally long term. I'm a big Ethereum holder. Obviously, if I went to Ethereum conference, then kind of my take and thoughts on it. So I'm also a big Bitcoin maxi too. I believe in it. It's just I'm pretty broke and can't buy a full Bitcoin yet. Keyword. Let's see. What else? First positive week since August of 2021. Here are kind of three catalysts that really kicked off everything, and they weren't just vibes. They were actual market mechanisms in place that really sparked everything. So there was a lot of Treasury liquidity intervention. You saw the Secretary Scott Bessent. He announced that they would double the size of long-term bond buybacks. So up from $2 billion, that pulls the yield curve down, which is historically like rocket fuel essentially for risk-on assets like crypto and tech and things like that. So that's kind of it's a mechanical driver, so an actual function, not just like a flash in the pan hype. There was a lot of political push too. Trump obviously pushed Congress to pass that Clarity Act. That's a big thing that's really going to give a lot of kind of obvious clarity, as the name provides, to the overall crypto market and whatnot. The SEC proposed regulation framework for crypto related assets. So those are kind of things we used to cry about in the crypto community that are now put in our plate that we're getting, and we're seeing the market react to that. I mean, Bitcoin basically threw up a god candle the other day, and then that was just the spark that lit the tinderbox up. Ethereum went from there, and it all kind of just went up from there. There was a good amount of kind of mechanical influence and amplification. Here it's reporting that this was heavily amplified by a lot of short covering. So a lot of, I guess, people got squeezed, liquidated, shorted the market, and it didn't work out. But it is what it is. Also, briefly, I'll get into other crypto-linked assets. Strategy moved really well, up 8%, actually 6%, 6 to 10. Sorry. Bitmine moved up really well, as you see. The company Tom Lee runs, fantastic. I like to hold that. That's a good thing I hold. Coinbase is up 8%, American Bitcoin up 15%, especially after that reverse kind of split they did back in July. You're seeing kind of a more positive rally now that the price of Bitcoin has risen. It's taken some margin pressure off of these companies that were kind of holding for a long term, taking a loss. As the price rises, you're going to see those companies kind of, their price is going to rise and everything, which is why whenever the market tends to dip, I like to kind of be really greedy, buy those cheap assets. It can feel very scary, at least for me, being young, seeing where the country's going, where the economy's going. It's like, geez, is this money going to be here when I need it? And the answer generally for me is yeah, it is. So I believe in my investment strategy. I'm still in a huge accumulation kind of period for Bitcoin, for really all crypto. I think I'm going to start to kind of move my Ethereum positions around a little bit now that I've gotten some kind of upward pressure on it, I'm gonna kind of move that into a little more higher risk kind of altcoins, nothing too, crazy. Maybe a small micro cap here and there, but mostly kind of like get ready for the altcoin rally that I'm praying and I'm knowing eventually is gonna melt face. So here's kind of some skeptic points. We're still really down from this year's all-time, high. I mean, this year at the beginning of the year in January, Bitcoin was around 95K. We're kind of a far cry from that now, hovering in the upper 70K range. So that's kind of an issue, and we're also very far from the October all-time high of 126. So take that with a grain of salt, and bond yields ticked pretty down when Besant was really dovish on his talks towards interest rates and things like that. So worth noting that they're back to around 5 to almost 5.5%. If the Fed does hike rates, I think a lot of the liquidity reserves are gonna mop up quick. So Bitcoin also historically does really crappy in September. It's usually down 3% historically. So I'm kind of looking at this kind of heading into the fall as like, from now until the end of September, I'm going to be accumulating heavily. I'm going to be picking up as much as I can to really, sell on a high if I do decide to sell on a high, or if I decide to just keep holding, which is kind of, I kind of adopted the sailor strategy of like never sell if possible. Obviously, sometimes you have to, life happens. You need, that's the point of crypto. You have access to your money and you're not just stuck in a CD or an IRA or whatever people are still using these days. But that just about closes up my video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna try my really damnedest to make this a regular thing. I love talking about crypto. Life just gets kind of hectic trying to organize how life goes. So I'm gonna really kind of make this a point to, on weekends, kind of give a recap of what I saw of the week, where I'm going. And like I said, I'm just accumulating. Hopefully you guys are too. Let me know in the comments section below what your guys' strategy is. I'm always open to learning. I'm always open to discussion and really just seeing like where this rally goes. And it could be kind of a seasonal kind of pump and then a dump later on. I'm okay with that. I can live with another, 20, 30, even 60%, drawdown, because at this point, well, what does it matter? I mean, we're all, sitting pretty heavily on losses. If you've been, in crypto long enough, that this kind of happens and it'll be okay. So long-term holding has always paid off for me, and I'm gonna keep doing that. And usually I try to sell during like peaks when I can. If I need the money, if I don't need to sell, obviously I'm not gonna sell. That's kind of my approach, not to sound kind of vain, but I'm only gonna sell when I absolutely need to. That's my strategy. So hope that works for y'all. Subscribe, comment if you found it interesting. Tell me what I can do better. If not, peace. See you all next video.